So tonight's session is a part of a series that commenced about 2 months ago. The talk's dedicated to the 100th anniversary of the Ascension of the Master. Tonight, Azita Sobhani will be going through recently translated tablets of Abdul-Baha. Azita Sobhani is a dynamic professional. She brings to bear her vast experience in building capacities in bilateral international aid programs to the well-being of individuals in local communities. She is the founder of Edraak Consulting, where she engages with the government, non-for-profits, educational institutions, and businesses to articulate their underlying core values, permit it to impact processes, and to finally enhance their effectiveness. Azita trained as a development economist. She draws the bulk of her experience in managing bilateral international aid and development programs that focus on enhancing individual and structural capacity to impact growth. Azita represented the Australian Baha'i community in the delegation to the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. Her approach to her professional and community work is underpinned by a strong sense of social justice and humanity's inherent oneness. Thank you, Azita.
Good evening, friends. It's really quite joyous to be with my old community. It brings back a lot of wonderful memories, especially on this very interesting year, the year of the Master, and really humbled to be with you to explore a little bit about this compilation of tablets. Before we start, I'm assuming I think dear Anne or Ashkan have posted this compilation in the chat, so that we don't take the real estate time of the space of the screen. I hope all of you can download it and have it with you, because we'll be going through some parts of it, and reading it. So we'll want one or two of you, dear friends, to sort of read so that you don't get tired of my voice.
Sorry, Azita, I forgot.
Yeah.
Just mean to interrupt.
Sure.
Hopefully for the last time. Can we just get a couple volunteers to read throughout? At some point, Azita will just ask for someone to read an excerpt from the document. Marcus, did you raise your hand, or am I just putting you on the spot?
Yeah, I'm happy to read.
Champion. Thank you, Marcus. Everyone is muted, so if a second person can offer their...
Azita Safar put her hand up.
Awesome. Thank you, Azita.
Oh, grateful, guys. So hopefully you can see it, and it's okay if everyone can view it, so that's fine. So of course, friends, all of us have been in touch or have received this compilation. I'll just set our evening. It's of course 76 tablets, and we can't even dip our feet in the 1 hour 45 minutes that we have together, but we can maybe dip our toes, little, itsy bitsy top of the toe, and but what I'm hoping that it will set up is that enkindlement and that joy and fervor in our hearts to, as the House of Justice is encouraging us to have this this profound reflection on the life of Baha'u'llah. Of course, your dear community has started this by having these series, so that's really exciting. And I suppose these compilations would need, a space of their own, so that we can explore them one by one. But for now, I'll just share with you that we will go through a few tablets in this compilation, and then we'll reflect on it. Hopefully it's quite interactive. There's not that many of us, so it's quite intimate and cozy, and we can talk. Not that much, but nevertheless. And then I'll share with you from the life of Abdul-Baha. So these tablets talk about certain criteria, certain things, certain guidelines that the master is sharing with us. And his life, you will see, testifies to those words. So in the preface of these tablets, and the House of Justice starts by saying that, I'll just read bits of it. You don't have to look at your documents for now. It says, though the tablets presented here cover the entire period of Abdul-Baha's ministry, many were written soon after the supreme affliction, meaning the passing of Baha'u'llah, right? And here they say that the whole, orphaned community really looked to Abdul-Baha in their desperate hour of need as their solace, their mainstay, and their champion. And sort of Abdul-Baha, whether writing in these times or whether later, Abdul-Baha calls people to reflect on the life of the Blessed Beauty. The House of Justice quotes here, sorry, there was some feedback, that the Blessed Beauty, whose one and only purpose in accepting such trials was to instruct the lovers in the ways of love and to teach the longing souls the art of servitude. To me, that was really quite interesting. We'd always taught, of course, testifying to the reality of what the revelation is about. Baha'u'llah went through a lot of tests, but that he's teaching us the art of servitude. And then later on, the Universal House of Justice quotes saying that these tablets are thus doubly precious. They say, who better to tell us about Baha'u'llah and to impart to us his lessons of spirit in the school of insight, lessons of spirit in the school of insight, then his most cherished son, then the interpreter of his mind, then the image of his perfection. So through the mind of Abdul-Baha, we are hearing learning lessons of spirit in the school of insight, which is really the title of our discussion today. And of course, this school will be a lifelong school because there's much to learn. But I thought this was really quite fascinating, how the Universal House of Justice anchors us and frames us before we even delve into this, writings. It's almost like providing the guidelines. So we start here. We know thematically the main, many of the tablets refer here because Abdul-Baha is talking to the friends in Iran who are going through immense hardship and persecution. And so Abdul-Baha is positioning that hardship and persecution to what the Blessed Perfection went through, to what he is going through, and the supremacy of this revelation and why we go through this as humans. So it's quite a fascinating way how he moves forward with this. We'll start with tablet number 3, friends. If we can bring it to number 3.
Okay, I can read it.
Thank you.
Number 3 is called God is the All-Glorious. O ye true friends and loved ones of God, the candle shineth resplendent, and the century of the Abha beauty is even as a flowering rose garden. The dawn of the Abha kingdom hath broken, and the stars of the celestial concourse glow with light. Gentle breezes blow from meads of the Lord, and sweet savours waft from the gardens of holiness. Heavenly strains from the kingdom of glory are raised on every side. and the summons of the company on high reacheth the ears of every lowly one. The day star of divine bounty hath risen in all its splendour, and the orb of God's grace sheddeth its radiance upon all regions. The manifold bounties of the most great name, may my life be offered up for his loved ones, are all embracing, and the banquet table of the Lord is spread throughout the earth. These blessings indeed compass you on every side. Behold then, what a diadem of bounty adorneth your heads, and what a kingly mantle attireth your beings. Consider what eyes of bounty watch over you, and what glances of mercy are cast upon you. Wherefore, be not saddened by the cruelty of the peoples of the world, or grieved by relentless trials, for all these befall you in the path of the ancient beauty. All these ye suffer for the sake of the most great name. These tribulations are bountiful gifts, and these afflictions naught but manifold bestowals. This captivity is kingship, and this prison a lofty palace. This blame and condemnation is praise and commendation, and this chain a necklace of world-embracing sovereignty. These stocks and fetters are the ornament of the feet of every fortunate one. These bonds and shackles are the highest hope of the people of glory, and these blades the swords, the ultimate desire of the lovers of the resplendent beauty. Consider how the sacred breast of the exalted one, may my life be a sacrifice unto him, was made a target for 100,000 bullets, and how the holy body of Qudus, may my life be offered up for him, was torn to pieces. Consider the galling of the chains and fetters that weighed upon the blessed neck of the most great name. May my soul be offered up for his loved ones, and how he was taken in that condition, bareheaded and barefooted, all the way from Nirvaran to Tehran, many a trial before that sacred beauty for well nigh 50 years, such that the pen trembleth at their mention. The first was the exile from Persia, the second, the banishment from Edraak to the Ottoman capital, the third, the exile from that city to European Turkey and Bulgaria, and the fourth, the banishment of the beauty of the all-merciful to the depths of the most great prison. Throughout this period, a myriad other tribulations also befell him from within and without. Likewise, call thou to mind the Abdul-Baha. May the souls of the well-favoured of the Lord be offered up for him, and consider what trials and tribulations that luminous candle and radiant orb suffered, and what woes he endured in the path of God. Consider how, in the ford of adversity, he finally quaffed the brimful cup of martyrdom, and what injuries were inflicted upon his kin. Recall too those other blessed souls who were even as shining lamps unto this world, as brilliant stars among the children of men, as resplendent rays and luminous orbs. They sacrificed themselves one and all, and shone brightly in the path of the blessed beauty. They suffered captivity and endured fierce persecution, were pillaged and plundered, were cast into prisons and dungeons until, in utter meekness, they drank at last the draught of martyrdom. It is therefore clear and evident that the trials endured in the path of the friend are the ardent desire of such as are nigh unto him, that woes suffered for the sake of the Lord are the sole yearning of the denizens of the realms above. Though to outward seeming they are poison, in reality they are pure honey. And though bitter on the lips of those who waver, they are sweet as sugar to those who stand firm. Therefore, in gratitude for such a bounty, in appreciation for the afflictions and trials ye have endured in the path of the incomparable beloved, it behooveth you to arise with such zeal and fervour as to dazzle the minds of all who dwell on earth. The glory of God rest upon each and every one of you, O ye beloved of the Lord.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Beautifully rendered. So friends, let's take a couple of comments if you have. It's a dense one, and it sets some very interesting, sometimes counterintuitive to our standards indicators in the plane of servitude. Sometimes we might even struggle to understand the spiritual rationale he's putting across, Abdul-Baha is putting across for us. He says so many people have given their lives, the blessed perfection, Qudus. Of course, I'm not sure if, maybe you're all familiar with Qudus and how he was put to death. Abdul-Baha, the first disciple of the Bab, Mullah Hussein, and so many other blessed, thousands of blessed other souls, he says. But the last paragraph is really interesting. Suddenly he says, and it is therefore clear and evident that the trials endured in the path of the friend are the desire of the lovers. It might not be very clear and evident for us. I don't know, I speak for myself, but you see how he's sort of saying, so therefore it's clear and evident. Otherwise, why would people, go through this? And then comes the punchline, at least to me, at the end. He says, so in appreciation for the afflictions, rise up in a way to dazzle the mind, in terms of like gratitude to this position. We don't crawl into our burrows and hide away. We don't run away. We actually, he says, it seems we need to arise with such zeal and fervor to dazzle the mind. So there's no sort of, oh, we've gone through all this persecution, or, oh, I haven't, my parents or my forefathers, many of us have stories, obviously a lot of stories, a lot of duress to share, but they're sort of saying, he's sort of saying, so in gratitude for such a bounty, what are we doing? Which again might not be that intuitive for us from the plane of the world of dust. I don't know how you guys are feeling. We are among friends, so we can share our thoughts, isn't it? It's not it's a study series, so it's good to share. So that's he unpacks it further. Before I take your comments, maybe this one will help us. We'll have to go right to tablet 48, paragraph 4. He unpacks it a little bit for us. So I'll just go whoopsie down to 48. Paragraph 4. And it's a small one, so I'll say it, I'll read it so then our other readers can read the rest. He says, are we there, or should I wait? We're there. Okay. Were ye to consider carefully, he says, because in the beginning of the tablet, he again says, "O ye homeless ones of Abdul-Baha." So people have, obviously their homes have been pillaged. They're out in the deserts and the mountains, and he's saying you're captives, just like Abdul-Baha in the most great prison. But at the end of it, he says, "Were ye to consider carefully, ye would surely perceive that adversity in the path of the one true God is a bounty. Inasmuch as the most great name, the ancient beauty, may my life be a sacrifice for his loved ones, did himself endure a myriad afflictions." Now, he had granted, and this is where the interesting point is, he hath granted that we, his lowly servants, may become his partners and associates in these trials and tribulations, each according to our capacity. Were one to judge with fairness, this suffering is worthy of gratitude, and these afflictions are not but manifold bestowals upon you be greetings and praise. So he's sort of unpacking this. Why is because to that, Baha'u'llah, the Blessed Perfection, the opener of this cycle, that basically the primal will manifested in our earth, we get associated because we share. And as we share, then something happens that we will realize in the other tablets, but we all sort of are getting some glimpses of it, I suppose. Is it triggering anything in your minds? Any questions, any bafflement, any? Associates in these trials and tribulations, each according to our capacity. In our time, you might be wondering, well, what happens to us? Well, in our time, we're going through our own issues and problems, each according to our own capacity, right? If we are homeless, if we are not, we are in different places to what we are used to, or where we were born, or we have family or kindreds away from us, or we pay a price because of certain priorities in our life. We don't all have to be, pillaged and stoned, although that is, one way. But many of us, many people are going through, we are doing our little, I suppose, humble share of little, if he agrees, Yes, Sati.
I just thought how this tablet sounds very similar to the tablet of Ahmad, where Baha'u'llah says, "Remember my days during thy days and my distress and banishment in this remote prison." I just thought that how Abdul-Baha wants us to remember Baha'u'llah's suffering in our own everyday tribulations, so that it would seem very little compared to I just thought there is a similarity in how we are trying to recall the sufferings of Baha'u'llah and Abdul-Baha.
Thank you. And of course, we know, friends, that there have been forces unleashed in the world by the coming of Baha'u'llah, right? It's unstoppable. He says, any barrier to oneness and unity will be taken away. And that's what we are feeling, the tremors now, very up close and personal in our world, because those tremors are being, the distrust in our social institutions, anything these are unstoppable. And in fact, Shoghi Effendi talks to us about what happened when these forces were unleashed, when Baha'u'llah, all throughout to the letters to the kings, in Rizwan, and in right up to the end of his ascension, when he starts writing to the world, says, through that word, the realities of all created things, the Guardian says, was shaken, divided, separated, scattered, combined, reunited, disclosing in both the contingent world and the heavenly kingdom entities of a new creation. So he'll scatter it, he'll divide it, he'll reform it, he'll bring it together the way he wants it. And no recourse have we. So through it all, through this bigger thing, that's this larger plan that's happening, as part of it, here we are little, mortal beings testifying to that reality in our words and in our life. And at some points in time, depending where we are in history living or geographically, people will be uncomfortable with these truths because these things are being shaken and reorganized, obviously, and will be affected. And so he's saying, don't worry, you'll just be my associate and partner. And then he goes on for much more. Okay. Have I sort of completely overwhelmed you guys? So nobody stop. Oh my God, it's going to be all doom and gloom. No, it's not. It's going to be actually quite interesting. Okay, so let us, what's the time? I'm just cognizant of the time because I've never sort of done this 76 tablets in 45 minutes. I'm trying to. Oh, all right. So we now, let's go to tablet number 4, if kindly Azita John can take us through it.
He is the all-glorious. O ye beloved of the merciful, that Abha beauty hath shone forth with his manifold names and attributes from the dawning point of all desires. He hath caused this glorious century to become the revealer of his wondrous grace through the effulgence of this new light, and hath set aglow the candle of unity in the world of being. In sweet accents of oneness and in celestial melodies proclaiming divine unity, he hath warbled upon the branches of the garden of inner meanings, so as to gather the scattered peoples of the world under the shadow of the word of God, and bring the hostile and contentious tribes of the earth together in unity and harmony beneath the canopy of the love of God. For this exalted aim, this sanctified and manifest purpose, he hath offered his breast to a myriad darts of woe, and welcomed countless wounds with utter joy and resignation, even as a healing balm. Not for an instant did he rest. Not for a moment did his sacred heart find tranquility. How many a night did he pass under the weight of chains, enduring until dawn 100,000 hardships, even as the captives seized within a hostile land. He met the darts of injustice with the target of faithfulness, and quaffed the poison of affliction as if it were the honeyed draught of immortality. He kissed the sharpened blade as though it were a brimming cup, and fervently yearned for the harrowing prison as if it were a loving embrace. He was exiled from his land and became a wanderer in the wilderness of adversity. He was banished to Edraak and Adrianople, and was finally incarcerated in the most desolate of cities. At last, despite all these afflictive calamities and toilsome tribulations, he planted the tree of oneness in the paradise of this new cycle and raised the tabernacle of unity, peace, and reconciliation above the highest of all standards. Then did the morn of hope dawn, and the sun of truth begin to shine. Its light was shed upon all regions, and the morning breeze wafted forth. The joyful tidings of the revelation were announced, and the blazing flame and glowing fire of the burning bush shone resplendent. The billows of the ocean of unity, even as the hosts of guidance, beat upon the shores of discord and cast the precious pearls of unity and concord far and wide. The divine springtime encircled the earth, heavenly flowers bloomed, vernal showers rained down, and life-bestowing winds blew on every side, till at last all were filled with hope that the beauty of oneness would be unveiled in the assemblage of the world, and that the brightness of its countenance would shine resplendent throughout all regions. Wherefore, O ye beloved of the Lord and friends of God, arise, and with the whole enthusiasm of your hearts, with all the eagerness of your souls, strive to unfurl the standards of unity in the midmost heart of the world, and cause with valiant might the ocean of oneness to surge. Thus may the body of humankind be freed from the constraint of these variegated robes and patched garments, and be adorned instead with the sanctified raiment of unity. This is the principal aim and true purpose of the revelation of the prophets, the advent of the chosen ones, and the rising of the Son of Reality in this most great dispensation of the King of Glory. Unless this sublime aim be achieved, unless this purpose of the all-glorious Lord be fulfilled and made manifest in the assemblage of the world, this great cycle will prove idle, and this mighty dispensation will yield no fruit. God grant that all endeavors may be dedicated to establishing the ties of unity and concord. The glory of God rest upon all who are steadfast in the covenant and have clung to that holy testament, through which God shieldeth against all discord.
Thank you so much, Azita. Lot to take in. Again, the theme continues, but starts off in an interesting way. He had caused this glorious century to become the revealer of his wondrous grace. He has caused. Everything that we will see then in our time is revealing that grace. It's interesting what he says. He's warbled, it's like a nightingale, right? The inner meanings of life, so that to gather the scattered peoples of the world under the shadow of the word of God. I don't know what images it triggers in your mind. There are some inner meanings. We've got 6 million Baha'is across the world, so give and take, from every protectorate, from every race, from every country, who testify to these inner meanings, and so our hearts are connected. contending tribes. Do you remember being at a huge international conference, perhaps, or maybe even international convention at the World Center, or different people from different countries? It's like a parallel universe. It's so different from the political arena. Baha'is from US, Baha'is from Zambia, Baha'is from, nobody's feeling superpower, lower power, side power. I mean, it's a different world of the inner meanings we've been, we've been catching a glimpse of pretty unconsciously. It comes to us, we say, oh, is it different? Yeah, it's very different. Nobody is maneuvering, nobody's scheming, nobody body politic, nothing. Group of early believers who everyone thought we'll put them to death, man, we'll finish the story here. It's over. It was just never over. It's quite fascinating. You think you're like, don't let me all talk, but it's quite fascinating. And notice paragraph 2, after all the darts and everything, all the hostilities, something happens in paragraph 3. Then the morn of hope dawns. The sun of truth begins to shine. Something happens. And you will see in the life of Abdul-Baha, I'll share with you some of the, the ebbs and peaks and troughs. It's quite fascinating, from abject destitution when, for instance, the Holy Family arrives in Akka, to then things just change. And how they change is quite, that's the lesson of lessons of love in the School of Insight. It's quite fascinating. Okay. And finally, let us.
Azita?
Yes, dear.
I was just thinking paragraphs 4 and 5 are the ones that are the two paragraphs that really hit me, where said, arise and with the whole enthusiasm of your hearts, with all the eagerness of your souls, strive to unfurl the standard of unity in the, etc. Right? And then it says in paragraph 5, unless this sublime aim be achieved, unless this purpose of the all-glorious Lord be fulfilled and made manifest in the assemblages of the world, this great cycle will prove idle, and this mighty dispensation will yield no fruit. And that, to me, I mean,
yeah,
both of these tablets, are just reminding us of the pain and the physical pain, let alone mental anguish, but the physical pain that we don't have to endure. That's not our thing, and yet we make all sorts of excuses not to do things for the betterment of the of the faith and for the advancement of the faith, rather. It says, this great cycle will prove idle. Maybe what a wow. How would you like that to be your what happened to that area, era? They were all idle.
Yeah, and we'll face them in the next world. Oops, we gave our life. What did you guys? Well,
yeah, what you guys do,
we were a bit.
You couldn't get up.
Precious about it.
You couldn't get up for morning prayers tomorrow morning. But I mean, but the thing is, we couldn't go to a CRM. We couldn't go to a to a cluster reflection meeting. We couldn't do all sorts of these little things because we've got our lives to lead. But sometimes I wonder.
Yeah, that is true.
What else do we have to do?
Very true. I'll just, if you allow me, I now have to plow through the rest. So I won't burden our readers. Just one or two. I'm going to number 30. because there's something that Anne was saying. Number 30, right? And paragraph number 3. He's again talking here about the affliction and the calamity that Baha'u'llah was going through from his native land. And then he says something very interesting here. His one and only purpose in accepting such trials and tribulations for his blessed self, here is what the House of Justice was referring to now, was to instruct the lovers in the ways of love and teach the longing souls the arts of servitude, to guide the yearning ones to the right path and summon the friends with the words such as these. Now, these are really such, tender words. Look at how he said, if ye lay claim to faith and certitude, if ye are enthralled by the beauty of the merciful and have surrendered your hearts to his delightful splendor, if ye are enraptured by his countenance and ensnared by his flowing locks, drink deep of the cup of woe as if it were the chalice of immortality, and welcome the sting of death as the elixir of life. Abandon all rest and comfort and turn away from defilement of this world. Consider the desert thorn as the softest silk and regard the scorching fire as a flowering rose garden. And he goes on, be ye exhilarated with the wine of tribulation and take pleasure and delight in the sweetness of affliction. Right at the end, paragraph 6, one line, he says, read thou this letter in the gatherings of friends. That's the only reason I brought it up, because, he's saying it to us. It's sort of, to me, he's setting my moral compass. I've got to become a little bit, abandon all rest and comfort. Well, they're not going to kill me, but the rest and comfort is big for us nowadays. Turn away from defilement of the world. Okay. And finally, oh, there's so much. Friends, it's a magnificent to go through these tablets. Hopefully your ingenious community can put some time aside for everyone to do this, for the whole of Victoria or our region. And finally, number 2, he ends in a high. Number 50 is very interesting, by the way, before number 2. But number 50, he says the greatness of Baha'u'llah and compares him to other prophets, not in terms of their fundamental unity, but in terms of how potent this time is. That people who pass by him cannot ridicule or mesmerize, are absolutely, what's the word in English? Disarmed. Even the most fanatical. And finally, number 2, he tells us that...
Sorry, Azita, did you say 2?
Yes, number 2, right on the top, yes. O seeker of truth, O thou seeker of the truth. And this I feel for anyone, our wider community friends, anyone. Behold the power and greatness of Baha'u'llah. Within a short span of time, he has stirred up the east and the west, raised aloft in the midmost heart of the world the banner of love, harmony, of unity and peace, of fellowship and conciliation, of truthfulness and rectitude. He had freed from enmity and strife a great multitude of souls. If we weren't Baha'is, friends, would we be so free sitting together talking tonight? We come from very different backgrounds, all of us. Where would we have been? It's a question that I always ask myself. He had freed from enmity and strife a great multitude of souls belonging to diverse and opposing nations, to disparate and contending religions, and had brought them under the sheltering canopy of fellowship, love, and unity. What power this is, and what strength, what greater proof couldst thou desire? He had brought the East and the West in close embrace, singly and alone. Now that's the reason for all the duress, the calamities. Singly and alone, he had withstood the world and uplifted his mighty cause in the most great prison. Though subjected to utter abasement, he had crowned his loved ones with a diadem of everlasting glory. Were one to gaze with the eye of justice, this would be sufficient proof. And a little cute this thing that was written concerning the cost of postage. Abdul-Baha had offered up his life for how much more his earthly possessions. Upon the greeting, somebody was asking, should I pay for postage? And he's very kindly. So this is a very interesting theme of sacrifice, but singly and alone, and that is why all this duress. That is why we withstand it as associates with the prophet or the messenger of this revelation, and that takes us to the life of Abdul-Baha. So now we go quickly through his life and see how this fundamental, how the nobility of soul, the character that Abdul-Baha personifies actually brings about this ascendancy of the faith. It's a very interesting, because the House of Justice asks us to go really profound reflection. I thought I'll share this. Parts of this history we all know, but there are some golden nuggets in the details. So let's go together. This was the quote I shared with you earlier from Shoghi Effendi. Through that word, the realities of all things were shaken and divided and separated and scattered and then combined and reunited. This is what happens with the forces because of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. Okay. Now we jump in. This is the final exile. Imagine yourself, the Holy Family, everyone is in Adrianople. They've been there for 5 years. Suddenly they hear that they have to leave to the penal colony of Akka. Actually, they don't know right at the start where they're going. There are all sorts of news that they might be separated completely from each other. So you will see, here is Adrianople, and they have to go through all of this. They have to go to Gallipoli, and then Alexandria across on a ship, and then Port Said in Egypt, and then Haifa, and then Akka, right? It is a torturous travel. Now, nobody is providing food for the coming voyage. They themselves, the company, like there's 70 believers and the family of Baha'u'llah. Everyone's so stressed out, they forget to buy even some food for themselves. So they have to stay with their ration of the inedible, food that's, prisoner ration in the ship, right? So they board the Austrian steamer for Alexandria. So they're going there. Now they're getting from Alexandria, they have to go to Akka via Port Said. Port Said is, Egypt. It's around here, and around the same time that the family was being banished. Again in Alexandria, the threat of separation looms, and the family is so terrified, no one is willing to leave the ship to buy food and not be allowed to return, because you never know that you'll be left there on your own. Nobody's telling them anything. The only food they are able to obtain is some grapes and water, and their bread having gone bad. They travel towards Akka with hunger added to their fright and grief. Now imagine, like, it's just like now they're reaching Jaffa and then Haifa. I'm just going very fast here. Now they reach Haifa in August. It is a grueling hot. You've heard about it in all the history books. In Haifa, Baha'u'llah and his companions, 17 total, disembark the steamer and are taken ashore in sailboats like this. Then they are handed over to the government officials. This is what Bahiya Khanum, his daughter, writes. After a voyage of about 2 days, we were landed at Haifa in Syria those days. All were sick from hunger or eating improper food. I myself was a healthy woman up to that time. Taking this voyage, since then, I've never been well. So it starts, and they are young. Bahiya Khanum is probably 24-ish, 23, 24. You reach Akka. I mean, it's as soon as they disembark, all the exiles, they're going through the filthy streets with the curious eyes of probably, something like that, of people in Akka who've come to the port to see them, and to see the god of the Persians, right? And the massive door is shut behind them. That's it. They're here. They don't know how long. They don't know what's going on because the edict of the Sultan is not read. Now, it's very interesting. First week in the most great prison, right? People are in this room, Baha'u'llah and 70 people. Parts of this room, first of all, it's total mud. Parts of it is ankle deep mud. Nobody can sit, right? The stench, you can see, because everything is happening in that one room. The children are screaming. The breastfeeding mothers can't feed their children because they're hungry and they are thirsty, and the soldiers are refusing. And Abdul-Baha here, right from here, now this is the interesting thing. Right from here, he starts moving about, talking to the soldiers, talking to send the governor, give us some water or food, or let us go and buy something. Nothing. So until midnight. And then in that week, everyone, of course, falls into typhoid and dysentery and all that. Abdul-Baha single-handedly with Nawab, his mother, right, and his 2 aunts and 2 other chefs. These 4, but mainly Abdul-Baha, is taking care of 66 people single-handedly, along with these 2 other women and 1 other man. The only thing he has is some quinine and some bismuth, and he is in his luggage, and armed with these 2 drugs, he's taking care of everyone. The soldiers, now watch this, see how his magnanimity, the way he's taking care of everyone. The soldiers are watching. The next day, he falls ill. After 10 days, Abdul-Baha falls ill. Now the soldiers are really moved. The first time that nobility, the dew of nobility is penetrating the soil of the heart of these people, right? So the soldiers are saying to the governor, hey, nudge, nudge, we need a physician here. This guy is going to pass away. The doctor comes. The doctor is besotted, the physician. He begs Abdul-Baha, right in the first 3 weeks, what kind of a service can I offer? Can you believe it? And Abdul-Baha says, take the writings of letters of Baha'u'llah, 1 or 2 letters that he writes, because there are some believers, outside. take it to them and bring their letter. So he puts it in his robe, in the inner layer of his robe, and he takes the letters back and forth. For 2 years, when they were in the barracks, see, the door is opening just because of the magnanimity of heart, right? And then Abdul-Baha becomes the best of friends over a couple of years with Mufti of Akka. You believe it? Mufti, the highest fanatical. He did not like Baha'u'llah. And one day he comes and when, you know, they're still in the barracks, he says, oh, I want to ask Baha'u'llah some questions. And Abdul-Baha says, okay, we'll have to ask and see whether he gives interviews. Now, for the Mufti, it's very shocking. This is a guy who walks in this street here and people kiss his hand, right? He stands and he asks his question. Abdul-Baha reveals. Now the language of revelation is continuing. And the Mufti wants to ask some question. Abdul-Baha says, not in the middle of revelation. You have to pause. He's really quite surprised. He's a bit disconcerted. But as months pass, he becomes a devotee. And he becomes such a devotee of Baha'u'llah that when Abdul-Baha, a couple of years later, buys this mansion of Mazra'e, Baha'u'llah is refusing, obviously, to go to the mansion of Mazra'e, saying that I'm a prisoner. I can't go outside Akka because this is outside Akka, right? And Abdul-Baha approaches his friend, the Mufti, and he says to him, look, and these are his exact words. He says, you're daring, go tonight to his presence, fall on your knees before him, take hold of his hand and do not let go until he promises to leave the city. Right? Because he wanted to see some greenery, Baha'u'llah. Abdul-Baha had purchased this mansion and made the gardens, and Baha'u'llah was saying, no, we cannot leave. So he's telling the Mufti now, he's become so close to him, he said, fall on your knees. And he's a prisoner to outward seeming eye, right? And that's what exactly the Mufti does. And he says, and Baha'u'llah says, I'm a prisoner. The Sheikh says, God forbid, who has the power to make you a prisoner? You've kept yourself in prison. And he keeps on and on. So Baha'u'llah finally says, Khayli khob. Okay, very good, we will. Gives in. Imagine, but do you see the power of change? And we hear these things, but to live it, to think it, that these guys are actually changing the soil of the human heart, changing right in front of this nobility of character. I mean, it is, I don't know, sorry guys, I get excited about these things. Another beautiful friendship with the governor of Akka, Ahmad Beg Tawfiq. He becomes in awe. He hears that Abdul-Baha swims. So the first time he becomes the governor, he rushes to Abdul-Baha. He says, oh, I want to see you, after your swim. And anyway, he's besotted by him. And he begs Baha'u'llah, what can I do for the people? What can I do for you? Some service, give me a... And then Baha'u'llah says, well, why don't you make the aqueduct so that people have water? And he sets about doing it, the governor. I mean, so this is the change, right? So for all practical purposes, really, I won't go through these. It's, Baha'u'llah passing in the streets and, people are just getting up and standing, the Pasha. He doesn't know. He's saying, what happened? Like, who is this person? Is this Holy Spirit or the King of Kings? Who is he? And they say, he's the father of Abbas Effendi, was the unanimous reply. The delight of hearts, Haji Mirza Haidar Ali says this, right? So you can see change. And we'll just jump. These are people standing. Really, the master becomes the master of Akka. Everyone is coming and visiting him on a single day. His grueling schedule, I won't go through it because we don't have time. And so really the prisoners are the masters of Akka. Everything has changed, right? The judge comes at the end of his session to ask complex questions from Abdul-Baha. Abdul-Baha is 29 to 34, 35 in these times, right? And this is the Biruni. This is like a typical, okay, now after here, Baha'u'llah passes away, the ascendancy of Abdul-Baha. Abdul-Baha goes to the West. There's a young Turk revolution. He's no more a prisoner. He goes to the West. From that vermin-infested prison cell, right, to this, the first day in New York, the first public address in America, Percy Grant introduces Abdul-Baha to his congregation at New York's Church of Ascension with his congregation of 2,000 people. Who would have thought? Right? And he says, I have the honor and pleasure to welcome to this place a messenger from the East. He comes with a plan of construction and reconstruction. And then now watch this, it's very interesting, but some will ask, what has he done to prove his sincerity? That means Percy Grant is saying, well, it's very easy to everyone to talk about love and peace. What has he, as in Abdul-Baha, done to prove his sincerity? An exile from his native land from the age of 9, a prisoner for 40 years, are the badges of Abdul-Baha's sincerity. You see how that, you know how he was talking about this prison is like it's honey, it's this, it's that, it's not what you think. Because people need to see sincerity for good. And then he comes hand in hand, he breaks one of the laws actually of the church. He comes hand in hand with Abdul-Baha. And then Abdul-Baha talks about that political interests of nations will not bring conflicting people together, because they cannot. The very nature of patriotic prejudices prevents unity and agreement. Only a new morality rooted not in material concepts, but in a holistic view of human nature can do this. And we go, you know, one after another, from New York to Washington, at Howard University. This is where 1,600 students are sitting. It's the best university, leading university of the nation for the Black Africans, African Americans. And what he says in these, how he breaks the color line when he's at this luncheon, we've all heard about it in the Persian legation, and how he meets with the president, and away we go. So I won't, I'm just cognizant of time, but finally, he poses this challenge in Chicago to the Americans that, that they are to lead. So from that, ankles in dust and much more in mud and vermin infested and brutality and chains and stocks, to this, to now are, you know, the way we see the faith. I mean, it's mesmerizing to be part of this drama, even though I speak for myself, might not understand the full force of it. I'll end here, friends. Just a little peek and a deep dive into, you know, the worlds of Abdul-Baha and how he testifies to the tablets he writes. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Azita June. That was very, that was a delight. I think I speak for everyone when I say it was really, it was nicely sort of run through the way you sequenced everything.
It's lovely having you on.
Guys, take care.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Azita.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
To
Good night.
see each other soon.